I'll give a little intro here. Okay, so we're here with Chadwick Gobar, Brian
Yes,
Favors,
sir.
and Brooklyn Baker. Y'all have all worked and played a part in the series of films titled 400 Years Later, which we'll get to in a second. The film from the series that we'll be talking about specifically right now is called Confederate Monuments, Heritage or Hatred. I just want to thank you all for being here. But first, I just really honestly, like, it sounds like a big project. There's a lot of moving pieces, not necessarily a lot of moving pieces, but it sounds like there's a larger project here. I'd love to hear how each of y'all are involved and got involved with this project.
It feels like this is such a longer answer to a question than the most film projects I've been involved in. So the HBCU Storytellers was a grant program put on by the Kellogg Foundation and the Nate Parker Foundation to encourage college students to tell stories about what we see in Virginia. HBCU students to tell stories about what we see in Virginia. They found out once they got the grant that 2019 would be the 400-year commemoration of the first Africans that came to this country. So everything ended up kind of falling into place and working out together. This specific film, we interview Ziona Bryant, who at the time was in high school when she started the petition to tear down the Robert E. Lee statue. And we interview Dr. Wes Bellamy, who was in his mid-20s when it happened, and he ended up getting a multi-million-dollar equity package for the city of Charlottesville. So my brother actually, he went to UVA during this time, and he was the Black Student Alliance president when the Unite the Right rallies happened. So my brother and Ziona, they both won a literary award that year, the Harriet Beecher Stowe Award. She won the one for high school and he won the one for college. So we were sitting at the table and he was just like, bro, you need to talk to her. Because we had already got the grant. We were already getting ready to do the stories about Virginia. And we'd already started in some capacity. So I got her contact information. We talked a little bit there and we were able to really center the story around her, which I think was powerful because not only because a lot of times when we see Charlottesville, we just see the violence and the white supremacy. But what I see from the stories from this documentary that we worked on, the Heritage or Hatred, is I see two young Black people being politically activated and what they can do for their surrounding communities.
I got a lot of follow-up questions, but we'll go around the room. Brooklyn, what's up? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I got involved the same way. Basically, my friend Maya was a part of the Nate Parker Foundation, and then I found out about the HBCU Storytellers. I went to Hampton University at the time, and I really wanted to get more involved into the film program. And so I applied, and when I got in, I was so excited. And it's literally been life-changing. Like, the opportunities that I have now, I really believe that the Nate Parker Foundation, the HBCU Storytellers, was my foundation and my credibility into the industry. So, and then to be able to tell stories that speak truth to power, that are actually liberating to our people, not even just learning the film knowledge, but actually being liberated, learning about my history in the African diaspora has really been like cultivated me into being a different type of leader, a different type of even human being, you know? So yeah, I just think that this has been a life-changing experience and I'm glad that people are enjoying the films.
Brian, why don't you go for it? And then I got some follow-up questions about
I'll be quick. I'm the co-founder of the Nate Parker Foundation. Nathan and I go way back. I was his mentor / teacher years ago, but in 2007-8, after the Great Debaters, he and I started working together. I was an educator in Brooklyn. I've been an educator for over 20 years, higher ed and high school. Now I'm a consultant, but we kind of merged and we created this foundation in 2015 to kind of merge activism and film. My love for African-American studies and activism, his love for film. We got a grant in 2017, as Chad said, to do the HBCU Storytellers project. And it was out of the Kellogg Foundation's Racial Healing and Reconciliation Fund. And we were to work with HBCUs. We picked Virginia State, Virginia Union, Hampton, and Norfolk State. And our goal was to create 4 short films that we could use as an engagement tool to go into the community and explore critical issues with young people. For us, it was a dream come true kind of project because it allowed us to incorporate film, but also what we call the Sankofa journey, making sure that our students know where they come from and have a cultural lens before they pick up that camera, and also get to interact with elders and really wanted to tell stories of community heroes in our community around issues that sometimes we don't know about. And it just so happened, we don't believe a coincidence, we believe it was God and the ancestors. It just so happened that it was due 2019, which we found out after getting the grant was the 400-year commemoration of the first Africans that were brought to Virginia. So it made sense that that would be the umbrella. The most visible racial issue in America at that time was what had happened in Charlottesville around the Unite the Right. So it made sense we would touch on that. And it made sense that we would work with Bryan Stevenson, who was somebody who was, doing groundbreaking work in the area of racial reconciliation. So we put all this together, and here we are.
Yeah, but that's a lot of intention. That's a lot of power. My question is though, 400 years later, that's a lot of time, my friends. That's also potentially a lot of maybe pressure as storytellers or filmmakers. Can you not necessarily talk about pressure per se, but what was that experience like participating in this series titled 400 Years Later, and what did that kind of mean to you? Especially working within the communities. These aren't films that are outside and serving the wider public per se. I mean, in some cases they do, but these are films coming from and within the communities. Can you just talk about what that means 400 years later? I'm going to throw that to the room. Go for it.
Yeah, what I would say is one thing that I've really learned from Nate is just the importance of telling stories, and that there's so many stories within stories, if that makes sense. So I don't have a lot of pressure when it comes to, I guess, the length of time, because there's so many untold stories. So just being intentional and seeing the stories that we want to tell, and knowing that there's so many other nuances, even right here, right now, we all have our individual stories. And we're all going through the same thing, but it's different nuances within that. So it's not really feeling the pressure of 400 years. It's just the excitement and the hopefulness of being able to tell as many stories as possible, because we don't know so much, because so much was stolen, so much was hidden. So it's really just getting the treasure. So, and that's why it's the beauty in community. I'm able to create with one of the most amazing creatives that I've ever met, and so I don't feel any pressure. I just feel hope when it comes to 400 years.
Chad, I'm gonna let you come in next, Chad. But for me, it was a little pressure because we got this money and we didn't know these students. And I've been an educator for a long time, and I knew, Nate and I have been doing this. We have a summer film institute. We know we can inspire the young people. But because this was a little bit different, we were communicating in Zoom every week. This is before, the pandemic, and we had some retreats. So it was a step out on faith in that we had to, meet these 15, 16 students that we'd never met. And we had to really see if we could create a journey through Zoom. But in regards to telling the stories, it was actually not a lot of pressure, because I've worked with Nate where you get money to do a film, that is to be sold. And that's pressure, because you got to make people their money back and whatnot, where we were really blessed to get resources from Kellogg. And regardless to how the films turned out, we knew that it was going to be a huge learning experience. And my goal was just to put them through the journey and make sure that they were, aware of the rich history in Virginia as it pertains to the roots of racism. And then we kind of just let them, it was an act of faith. You just kind of do the work, connect with the young people, and trust that God and the ancestors are going to bring the stories that need to be told. I'd done that before in Virginia, working with Nate around Nat Turner. So it was a lot of faith. And we were just blessed to have so many young people who took ownership. It wouldn't have worked. They had to take ownership. Like Chad said, meeting Zion at an event and coming back, I met Zion and Bryant, and it just seemed like everything worked out. Bryan Stevenson, Tim Kaine, Senator McClellan, all of these young people, all of a sudden they'd be showing up at Hampton University. One of our students would say, well, Senator Mamie Locke's gonna be here tonight. So, a little pressure, but, at the same time, working with the ancestors and really the work we were doing, we were really inspired and believed that God and the ancestors were going to direct us. And that's exactly what happened.
When it comes to one, you said 20 years is a long time. It really, honestly, it is, but it isn't in some senses. I mean, when we look at 400 years ago, it looks like such a foreign culture. It looks like such a foreign way of thinking. But a lot of the attitudes and the structures that were set into place, they are why we have what we have today. So I think I've always loved history. I think going back and looking at our history is very important. But at that time in 2017, 2018, when we were doing this, I didn't feel pressure. I think I felt inspired. because I was one of the student mentors in the program, and I was excited to be able to be a part of this. This was one of my first introductions to filmmaking. So,
I mean, hell yeah, y'all did a great job. So shout out to first times. So question on that is, so this film, particularly the Heritage or Hatred film, is within Charlottesville, and it's about the statues and the monuments. Generally speaking, it gives a holistic description of that in America, but specifically in Charlottesville for primary parts of the film. I guess my question is, who is the audience of this film? And like, so potentially the audience is for the people in Charlottesville to be heard, to share their stories, and then to see that reflected when they watch the film. But then putting this film in other festivals that are maybe national or even more than that, international, I'm not sure. Who are the audience for film? But more so like when you're, especially like all these people come together, and Brian, like with Nate and even Kellogg's and the money, like what was the process, maybe speaking to other filmmakers, like what was the process of like thinking through who's the audience for this? How are we making this film? How are we storytelling this? How do we make sure that we're using a storytelling voice to connect to the audience or audiences we want to connect with?
You know, maybe you guys can speak to it. We didn't think that deep. We just wanted we wanted to have, I know from my perspective, we just wanted to tell some authentic stories. And you know, when you're talking about the Confederate flag, it means something to everybody or not. You know, we were able to come to New York and screen it for some high school kids. We partnered with Nicole Hannah-Jones, and we did a 1619 conference at Boys and Girls High School with several schools. And, you know, you'd just be surprised at how many young people didn't even know what the Confederate flag meant. And I think that whether you're black, white, this country, Southern Poverty Law Center just put out this extensive research about how much teachers and students don't know about the Civil War, and how our inability to understand that history hinders us from moving forward, right? People go to Robert E. Lee High School and whatnot. People don't even know the history and psychologically what that's doing for us. So for me, my first goal is always our community at home. Let's educate our people. But I think Chad did such a good job of interviewing people on both sides. And we found that whether we go to a corporation in Detroit, no matter where we go, we can educate the community and have these discussions, because this really speaks to, you know, American racism. So for me, the audience, it didn't really matter. I just wanted young people. I wanted the world to know that these young people had started this movement. And I wanted the world to see these young people, Chad, Brooklyne, and the other storytellers, to just be telling these stories. And for the audience, black or white, to see it through their eyes.
I think that when it comes to the question about the audience, I think a lot of times we talk about racial healing or racial reconciliation, and we focus on black people, but I think, or people of color. But I think that white people are inflicted with the harm of the white people are inflicted with the trauma of racism. The same way black people are. It's different. It manifests itself in different ways. But I think that if we're going to heal and we're going to come together, then there has to be more projects like this, where in Heritage or Hatred, we ask people from both sides. We say, what do you guys think about these monuments? And people give their honest answers. I think film is a very powerful tool that's able to make somebody sit down and listen to somebody else's perspective that they wouldn't have heard otherwise, or that they might have turned off, or that they might have interrupted otherwise. But I think that it was important to give voices to multiple sides, and then to go into the history and to say, this is the history of it. If this is how you still feel after understanding the history and the truth of the matter, then that's something that you need to reconcile and deal with within yourself.
So that's really important. I want to drill down there a little bit further. Like, yeah, I found that really interesting. Is like, you have some differing opinions about these statues, especially within Charlottesville, right? And like, or within Virginia. And I guess, was there any like challenge when it comes to the editing process, or thinking through like whose voices were included, how much? Was there like a lot of talk about that? Did it come naturally? And just, again, thinking about like communicating this to other filmmakers who are making films, social justice films to impact the community, how much do you lend to potentially oppositional voices or just other voices?
I think that we live in a time where people get their news and their information from people who are from echo chambers, from people who already agree with them. And I think that unless we present opposing views in a sober way, then one, we're never going to know what our fellow Americans are thinking. We're never going to know what people who think differently than us are thinking. And we're just constantly going to continue to become more and more divided. I think that it's really important to give everybody a platform. But like you said, as a storyteller, like we're still shaping the story. Like, it isn't just people who want to keep them, people who don't want to keep them, and that's it. It's people who want to keep them, people who don't want to keep them, people who want to keep them because of this reason, and then people who don't want to keep them because of this reason. And we just let them talk. We're not shaping or putting a spin on their perspectives. And then you have the history of it. And I think that the history of it is so important, because everybody can have their different perspectives today, but unless we understand how we got to this point, unless we understand the Daughters of Confederacy, unless we understand Jim Crow, unless we understand what led to us having so many Confederate monuments, then we're not going to ever deal with the issue. And I think that comes to 90% of our issues in our culture. We don't understand the history of it. And I think that if we have a place that we can go back to, we can let people hash out their issues and then go back to the history. I mean, the history it's happened. Like, it's not something that you can kind of put a spin on. Like, it's already there. So I think that the echo chambers that we're living in is it's going to continue to make us more and more divided. So I think that it's very important that we put out both or multiple perspectives and have people deal with that.
And I know from my perspective, it wasn't really a question. To me, that was a title. To me, it's very clearly hatred, because I know the history of it. Like, in Germany, that's why in the end, we brought up, like, in Germany, you go to jail for a swastika. There's no ambiguity around that for me, but for a lot of Americans, there are. So like Chad said, we wanted to take them down the journey. And we had some, even throughout the journey, as you saw in the video, there was even some different perspectives in the Black community. But we were all clear that it was hatred. The process, some people had some disagreement, but I think we all knew that it was, there was no ambiguity around that. We just wanted to take people down a journey and educate them. Because once you know the history of it, there is no ambiguity. It's terrorism. Why they were put up, when they were put up. There's no ambiguity around it. But for a lot of Americans, they don't know that.
Really, it's just taking people through the journey and allowing people, really like letting people like form their own opinion, but we know what we're leading them to the truth. And so hopefully they lean into the truth, and that's the best way that we can do it.
No, I appreciate that. Like, y'all see I May Destroy You, that the HBO show, Michaela Cole, I May Destroy You. It came out earlier last year. My favorite line in there was like, this echo chamber is freezing, right? And so like these echo chambers become real and loud and cold and isolating. And it's cool for a minute because you're like, yeah, la, 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 la. And then after a while, you're like, man, I'm cold and lonely because I'm just hearing the same thing or talking to the same people. And then like you lose your sense of humanity. So it's really dope that, and not to be like, yeah, it's just really dope to be like thoughtful enough as going into this story, like we are going to include a multiplicity of voices. We have an idea and a fact of what we're standing on, what we believe this is, but we want to include as many voices as we can to like shape this story to understand how people are dealing with this particular sort of set of circumstances 400 years later. And this is our moment to change. That to say, like, we are running a little bit low on time, but I just want to leave with this and we'll see where we go after this. I guess, how do you hope this particular film, but these series of films, like tell the story of confronting, coping, or just healing from hate?
I hope that this film empowers young people to take their political destiny into their own hands. So not only was it made by a bunch of college students, but it centers around a 26-year-old vice mayor and a high school activist. So.
Yeah, so that's really what we like to say as the storytellers, is really just hopefully that this encourages you to do your part and play your role, whatever that is, So like, we're filmmakers and we use, the camera as a weapon for justice. But, if you are into healthcare and, the healthcare disparity with Black people, like whatever your role is in this world of trying to help our people, and spread the knowledge, we hope that this encourages them to do that, and understanding that you're never too young, or also you're never too old, to be a part of, this healing journey and spreading the knowledge. Speaking truth to power. So yeah, that's what we was.
Yeah, and I think they hit they hit all the points. I know from me, just from an educator standpoint, we think it's a powerful seed. You plant a seed. Films are powerful educational mechanisms. So who knows who will be inspired by this? Our role is just to create as many opportunities like this, whether they be at film festivals, schools, colleges, churches, that allow an opportunity to plant more seeds. And Brooklyne, Chad, Niambi, a number of the students we work with, they're our future leaders. So we wanted to, the same way that Zayana is going to continue, we're going to all know about her, and she's doing amazing work at UVA right now. This is an investment in our future leaders. They are tomorrow's answer. So, our goal is and we plan on doing more films. And we just did a taping and Chad was a part of in Atlanta with EJI Fulton County Remembrance Marker Project. So we just want to continue to tell stories that plant seeds right now, knowing that this is also an investment in their futures, because they're going to go on and do amazing work for years to come.
Like literally, what's next? We kind of heard like what's next for this film and this series of films, but then I hear a little Issa Rae out here. Like what's next for like y'all individually?
So what's next for me is really just like Chad mentioned earlier, this was also my first introduction to filmmaking. So that's why I give a lot of my credit and hats off to Brian and Nate, because they mentored me in this film world, and they also mentored me, with really discovering who I am, because you can't know who you are unless you know where you've been, the Sankofa journey. So I really planted my feet in the Nate Parker Foundation and in the HBCU Storytellers. And that granted me the opportunity to now be able to be working on Issa Rae's new show. That's where I'm about to head out to now. So, it's just been a blessing. It's been a journey. Because in this industry, it's like, it's hard to maneuver through, and to be able to be a part, to be able to have someone as credible as Nate, and people know that Nate speaks truth to power in his films, so like even me being in connection with him and being able to be in connection with the Nate Parker Foundation speaks truth to who I am, like, okay, so she must be concerned about our people, because Nate doesn't just put out absolutely anything. So this has just been a huge blessing for me, and this will go on for years to come, and it will give so many other young people the opportunity to be able to actually break into this industry and actually make true change.
So yeah, I've just been, since that, I've been working on a lot of films. I mean, I have a short film that I produced with another NPF alum, and several NPF alums are starring in it, and we're behind the scenes. That's in the Pan-African Film Festival right now, and it was actually it's called Nazin. Right. Yeah, so if anybody's watching, you can go to PAFF.org and look up Nazin. It's actually up. It's up for one of the best shorts up for the voting right now. I shot my first feature film as director of photography this past summer with another NPF alum, and the cast and the crew was made up of Nate Parker Foundation students. And then I shot my second feature. We wrapped the first week in February. So honestly, I was bit by the filmmaking bug, and that's really what I'm trying to pursue. I think the more and more I've gotten into it, I've enjoyed producing and shooting. So, yeah. And then for the films, I mean, we want to get them out to as many people as possible, and we want to continue to document our history. Like Brian said, Fulton County, they had a remembrance marker for Mac Henry Brown. If anybody's familiar with Equal Justice Initiative, they are creating historical markers for people who were victims of terrorism. That's how I like to put it. But basically, people who understand it, people who were lynched or unjustly killed. So hopefully, we can continue to tell more stories like that, because we have to look at America soberly in order to appreciate it for what it is.
And I would just say for these films in particular, it's interesting. We didn't even know that all of the Confederate monuments were going to be taken down. Like, we didn't know that there was going to be a surge. So we're continuing to get opportunities in different film festivals with organizations like yourself. We're doing this virtual space has been a blessing because we can go everywhere. So we're getting requests from colleges, from high schools, and we're just going to keep doing this. We are in the Pan-African Film Festival. We made as a foundation, we made 2 COVID response films over the summer, virtually. As of now, you look at Brooklyne and Chad, we have over 120 filmmakers who have come through our program. So we're building an army of storyteller activists who want to go in the community and do what Brooklyne and Chad are doing. We're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep using this virtual space to do screenings and conversations around, the Confederate Monuments, as well as some of the other issues brought up in our films. We did 2 COVID response films, so we're going to be looking at the Black COVID experience. We're going to be doing screenings. We're in the Pan-African Film Festival with those 2 films. But really, again, just trying to build a movement and the power of film. We learn through stories. So we're just going to continue to put cameras in young people's hands, continue to give them that Sankofa journey, and see what it does. Thus far, it's been a blessing. We're going to continue to fundraise because this costs money, and we're going to continue to talk to foundations and people who want to give. And if you are interested, and if you like what you see with Brooklyne and Chad, we are empowering the next generation of storytellers and leaders and individuals who are not afraid to go into the community and be culturally responsive with that camera. We're going to continue to do that work.
Y'all out here making us look a little lazy out here, doing the good work and doing the good work. So thank y'all so much for doing the good work. Thanks for sharing your film. Thanks for being here. Good luck with the hustle. Good luck with the good work, and stay in touch, y'all.
Same to you, brother. Appreciate you. Look forward to talking again.
Thank you.